Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Legal Access. We get together at this time each and every Thursday, at least for the next 24 hours, because starting next week, next Thursday, 168 hours from right now, we're going to actually not be on the air because we got a new time next Thursday. It's going to be 11:30 instead of 12:30. So put it in your calendars and make sure and see us next week. HOA is going to be our topic for next week, by the way. So it'll be a fireworks-filled show and an hour earlier than it is right now. Today we're going to be talking about personal injury in general. And we've got a great panel here to talk about all aspects of personal injury. From the McGuire Law Firm, first of all, Ian McGuire.
Good to see you, Dave.
Also from McGuire Law Firm is Brittany Jones.
Hey, Dave.
And also from McGuire Law Firm is Mike Smith.
Good afternoon, Dave.
So we're well equipped if you want to talk about automobile accidents, if you want to talk about slip and fall accidents, any other kind of accidents you may have had on somebody else's premises, if you've been hurt at work, whatever the case may be, any kind of personal injury that you may have questions about today. The phone number is on your screen at 843-848-8080. Give us a call and we'll get the answers for you today. Now, the most common personal injury case that you guys deal with is automobile accidents, I'm assuming.
That's right.
Probably so, yeah.
And Mike, I don't know, we don't get to have the three of us on here together much, but it's nice to have that. And in fact, Tiffany's back at the office working hard. But Mike spent decades, I can say, right, doing defense work. So he's on the other side of things. So from your perspective, and now we've been it's been very exciting and wonderful to have Mike with us for the past almost year now. The year's going pretty quick. But how has it been being on the plaintiff side, and what differences and things distinguish the plaintiff work from what you did working for essentially insurance?
Wow, it's the interesting thing for me is the personal aspect of the cases when you're on the plaintiff side. I'll have cases where somebody's coming to you. They're a deer in headlights. They're not used to the process. When you're on the other side, you're dealing with an adjuster that's got 10, 15, 20 years of experience, and he's got his own game plan that he wants to operate by. But when you're dealing with a plaintiff, this is their one and only suit for the most of them. And so they're relying on you so much. And going through the process has been fun because you're guiding them through, and they're looking at you for the advice, and especially on settlements, it's been really cool from my perspective how personal the settlements are to these plaintiffs. You get somebody to come up and give you a hug. Versus, that's what we expect for you when you're on the insurance side, and we'll send you another file. So thank you very much. And it's just a totally different aspect.
And when you use the word relationship, you really do develop a relationship when a case gets into a lawsuit. You spend prepping your clients for depositions, and there's mediation, and if there's not a fair settlement at mediation, then you're going to proceed to trial.
Right. And
ultimately, it's always your client's decision, right? But you're counseling them on what's best for them, and you really are working in tandem to come to whatever is the best solution. Sometimes they're hard decisions, aren't they?
They are. It's very frightening for the typical plaintiff to think about having to go to trial, to undergo the pressure of depositions, to the stress of a trial. I'll tell people all the time, I said that generally when you're in a trial, the only ones having fun are the lawyers. Yeah. And that's right until the jury leaves, and then you look down at my chest and watch my tie bouncing and wait for the anxiety for that jury to come back, because now it's out of your control. But it is it's an interesting process, and it's just very, very personal on the plaintiff side, and it's just so routine. And as an insurance defense lawyer, you do develop relationships. There's adjusters that I still talk to, and I know their kids, and they know my kids, and et cetera and so forth. But it's just so much more personal from the plaintiff side, because you are affecting their life in a way that is way beyond an insurance adjuster's individual case.
And you mentioned trial, and Brittany and I, we always say, like, oh, well, we're going to have other trials and other cases next week. This is your one case. So,
right.
And right now it's all about you and your case, and it's a huge decision for the plaintiff, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one thing that's really interesting and unique about what we do. A lot of times you hear maybe jokes, especially about it, lawyers and personal injury attorneys especially. But I do think, you really do get a feeling, especially from the plaintiff side, that you're helping people.
Right.
When you're helping them, like you said, Mike, they are coming to us because something bad has happened in their life, not because they're having a great day, but because something major has happened to them, and they need help going through that process. And so I do think that's one of the really special things about what we do is you do get that sense of you're really helping people through a hard time.
And if you've had any problems with personal injury, make sure and call a personal injury attorney because they do work on contingencies. Consultations are free, so a lot of people are afraid, oh my gosh, how much is this phone call going to cost me? It's not going to cost you anything. Just call and get that. Speaking of which, people can represent themselves in personal injury, automobile accident cases. It's not a good idea. What are the people missing out on if they try to represent themselves and say, I don't need a lawyer to do this?
Yeah, there can be all kinds of things that you're missing out on. First off, I want to say that the insurance company, right? They have people like Mike when he was on the defense side at their whim. They can call. The insurance company has that. So you want to be equally as armed, if you will, as that adjuster is. By having an attorney is the only way to do that. You don't know what you don't know, and there are so many things. The first thing that comes to my mind, to do with property damage or even punitive damages, but just what all is available to you. You're not going to know, and that insurance adjuster is not going to just offer it up. You have to know what to ask for.
Right.
I think I always say the biggest thing that we can offer, and you mentioned being armed, is the artillery. What we can offer is the ability to take a case to trial and take it out of the comfort zone of that insurance company. Otherwise, the insurance company is telling you what they're going to pay and what the value is. The only way to change that is to take the case to trial. If the insurance company, we'll let Mike talk more about this, but if the insurance company knows you're a firm that's going to go to trial, is willing to go to trial, is prepared to go to trial, they are going to take that into account, and the offer is going to go outside of what their comfort zone is, because they know a jury of 12 people might do what the plaintiff thinks the case is worth rather than what the insurance company is trying to tell you it's worth. So, if you go, there's a lot of good attorneys. If you go to an attorney, make sure if it's a personal injury case that they are a firm that will go to trial.
Because the insurance companies know that,
that's what makes a big difference.
They do, and I will confirm what Ian just said, because there are insurance companies out there that understand and know the tendencies of certain plaintiffs' lawyers. I can't tell you how many discussions I had when I was on the defense side. Well, we don't have to offer much more than X because this particular lawyer will never take the case to trial. And then you've got other lawyers that have reputations that they may not want to admit this, but I will tell you that there are certain firms that are looked at differently because they know that that firm will take you to trial. And that's something that's hard to do because it's hard to go to trial, number one, but it's hard to find a law firm that is so dedicated to being able to take a case to trial. You've got to have that inner fortitude, I guess, and just like the firm that I'm with now, will take a case to trial, and that's exciting.
We're going to run to a break here. If you have any phone calls, remember we are talking about personal injury in a broad sense, whether you've had an automobile accident, whether you've been hurt on somebody else's premises, maybe hurt on the job, whatever the case may be. Give us a call. The phone number's on your screen. We've got plenty of time to get you in here today and get your questions answered on Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm. Welcome back. It's Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm. Remember, starting next week, we're going to be changing times. We're going to be on at 11:30 a.m. instead of at 12:30 p.m. So just adjust your viewing habits accordingly, and we'll see you next week. Our topic next week will be HOAs, by the way, in case you want to plan in advance. We're talking about personal injury, though, here today. If you have any phone calls that you need to get answered, our phone number is on the screen. Give us a call. We'll get you on the air here, and we'll answer your questions, along with three lawyers here from the McGuire Law Firm, Ian McGuire, Brittany Jones, and Mike Smith. Some people might call up as far as injury is concerned. They say, well, so-and-so did this to me and I feel like I've been defamed or slandered. That's injury to my personal being. Is that, and they want to have some sort of a case. That's not a personal injury case. Is it, or is it?
Well,
Well, it's personal, it's an injury. I mean, slander cases
those are tough.
are tough cases. There are certain cases they call slander per se, where they're, statutorily there's a violation, right? But I must say it's been many years since I've handled a slander case, and there are tough cases to.
They're tough cases, and they're cases with small monetary damages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, it's hard for somebody to say that a particular comment or statement or something that has been in writing against somebody has caused an economic damage to you.
And that's, key in any case we're looking at, cases that we take on, is that there's a violation or a breach or, something that happened, and then also there's damages to be recovered from it.
Right.
So,
You see it a lot with public figures, and the public figures, of course, are in Congress, and they're basically, there's an out with them. They could because they're public figures, but there are certainly cases if you can prove that it really hurt your reputation.
Right.
There may be dollar value to that. They're just they're few and far between. I would say is fair around these
Right.
parts. Right.
One of the other calls you might get from time to time as far as personal injury might have to do with medical malpractice or wrongful death cases. Now, obviously with medical malpractice, we know, and we've talked about before here on the air, that those cases are a little bit harder to prove because the bar on that is much higher than on a regular personal injury case. Why is it so hard as far as medical malpractice cases are concerned?
Yeah, I'll start. And generally our firm, generally doesn't handle medical malpractice. We handle nursing home abuse cases, and doctors rightfully have the standard of care is very, can I say, liberally construed, and it should be. Every time there's a bad result, doesn't mean that there's necessarily negligence, and they are tough cases. There are lawyers that's exclusively what they handle is medical malpractice case. Of course, wrongful death is extremely that a medical mal case can have a wrongful death in it, but the wrongful death is the damage.
Right.
So can an auto accident.
So can an auto accident. So can a fall case, and of course we handle wrongful death cases all the time,
Yeah.
very regularly. Unfortunately, that it happens all too often. But medical mal is sort of its own niche. You need, before you even can get anywhere, you have to have an expert, and that would be generally a doctor that fills out an affidavit in South Carolina and says there was negligence and a breach of the standard of care. Right, Mike?
Right.
But
insofar as wrongful death, like Ian was saying earlier, that covers the entire gamut of the tort practice. You can have a wrongful death by being involved in a motor vehicle accident, or like Ian said, you could have, a horrific fall and result in injuries. Or we've even had gunshot cases in some of the local establishments that have ended in wrongful death, somebody getting shot. So yeah, that's a broad spectrum on the wrongful death part.
You mentioned nursing homes a couple of minutes ago. If somebody is suspecting that one of their loved ones is not being treated correctly at a nursing home, what steps should they take to try to chronicle that?
yeah, and I'm going to answer that. The first thing you do with a nursing home, with a family member, is stay involved, be present. I think the more you're there, the less likely that there's going to be an opportunity. And believe me, there's people that show up every day to see their loved one and there's still abuse, so it can happen. But I think you're going to minimize that risk by being present as much as you can be present for your loved ones. But as far, and we talk about this a lot on the show, phone calls are fine, but it's very hard later to go back and demonstrate that people want to notice. Emails and texts work a lot better than the phone calls, don't you
Right.
agree with that?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything you want to add to the nursing home, Brittany, aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like you said, being present is something that's really important. You know, a lot of what we see with nursing home neglect cases centers around, you know, certain types of injuries. For example, you know, bed sores, those kind of things kind of come up. And being able to say that you were there, that you saw it, that things were documented in some kind of way goes a long way. And it is much harder with just a phone call. I think, like you said, email or, you know, something in writing where you can say, you know, I checked up on this, I asked
Right.
about it, and here's the
Right.
documentation of that. Yeah, those are sad cases to see.
And Mike, you mentioned gunshots. Now, as far as being safe at somebody's premises, as far as that's one of the things that kind of dovetails off of that. I mean, are patrons to a bar, restaurant, or any kind of business expected to have some sort of a modicum of safety as far as going in there?
That's a very interesting question because a lot depends on, you know, the old common law, if you will, the law from the cases back in the day. You know, you weren't necessarily, you didn't have to have or take responsibility. You weren't charged with the responsibility of protecting everybody from a criminal act. But most of the areas around here, most of the bars that do the big events, you know, the fights and things like that, will hire security. Well, if you've undertaken that duty to hire the security, then now you've created a duty, if you will, to your patrons
Right.
to keep them safer under the circumstances. You can't guarantee the safety of everybody, but at the same time, be careful. If you're that bar and you hire that security, you're
Right.
going to be held to a certain standard.
And I want to be clear, because I know you'd agree with this, we're not espousing or suggesting that you shouldn't hire security
No,
because,
no.
that way I won't be on the hook, because actually if it's a dangerous area and there's been prior incidents in the realm of the area where your establishment is, you very well could be on the hook.
Right.
But yes, once you undertake something, you got to make sure that it's handled properly. We've handled a lot of these cases over the years. I suspect that a lot of attorneys aren't doing those because they're difficult cases. Juries are a lot of times go, well, the actual person that committed the crime is responsible as opposed to the establishment. But you know, when you are going to an establishment and you're paying money, in many cases, you should expect a certain amount of protection, or at least
safety.
some kind
Right.
of safety, an overview of safety in that establishment. I think there should be some expectation, and a lot of it depends on where it is, what's happened in the past. So as Mike said, it's not an easy, it's not simple, and it's not a direct answer to each and every situation.
Right.
A lot of it's going to go back to what's reasonable for that business in particular. So, you know, if it's a big business, a small business, where it's located, all of these different things are going to come into play.
Yeah.
And there's so many resources that you rely on to basically help you figure out, are you in an area that would require the safety? And you know, there are studies
Yeah.
that are done, and
Crime
anybody
report.
that reads the newspaper in our area knows that anything downtown in Myrtle Beach you're going to need some safety.
All right, before we run to a break, we do have a call here. We have Mickey from Marion on the line with us right now. Hi, Mickey. Thanks for calling in. And what's your question for the panel today?
Hi, it's in regards to a medical malpractice. So my question is, it's a little tricky. If there is a diagnosis of certain disease, lupus, and you find out 7 years later that you don't have it, but you've been treated for it. When you're treated for it, the treatment has caused, I got misdiagnosed. I found out I was misdiagnosed.
And there's side effects to that treatment
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. There's a lot of side effects from, I was actually taking cancer medication for 7 years. I do know that there's a statute of repose, but if now I'm dealing with different types of side effects from it, how do I get around that?
Yeah, and I could, if you don't mind, if I can start. The first thing you do is contact an attorney. You mentioned the time period, and usually there's a time period. It might be a 3-year statute of limitations. It might sometimes, in certain instances, only be 2 years in South Carolina. But there is an exception to when you knew or should have known about the incident, and that might start what we call the clock, right? So although it's 7 years has gone by, throughout that majority of that 7 years, you believed you were, and of course you were listening to your doctors and you were doing what they told you. You're not going to go back to 7 years. You're going to go to the time where it was reasonable, right, for you to know.
Or where you discovered
the
misdiagnosis.
The misdiagnosis and the incident. So without, there's probably so much specific things with your case that I wouldn't try to answer on the air, other than to say I'm sorry that you've gone through that. That's horrible. And to encourage you to sit down with a medical mal attorney, look up someone that's what they handle is medical malpractice. Don't wait, because the time it could be argued when that clock started. But sit down with an attorney as soon as you can, and get some answers, because you deserve it.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything?
Well, Mickey, thanks for the phone call. I
Good luck.
appreciate that, and glad that you do not have lupus and continued good health. We're going to have to run to a break here real quick. When we get back, we'll have just a few minutes left. If you have any final personal injury questions, we'll be able to get you on the air. Phone number's on your screen. It's Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm.
Sorry, that was wrong.
Welcome back. It's Legal Access. We're talking about personal injury here today, and we appreciate the calls so far that we've had. We do want to remind you once again that starting next week, we're going to be moving our show instead of 12:30, a brand new time. It's going to be on at 11:30 a.m. So if you like this show, make sure and program your phones, or however you do things these days. I write things on calendars, but I'm old, so anyway. Next week, 11:30 is going to be our new starting time. We've talked about a lot of things as far as personal injury is concerned. It's still officially summer for another 2 or 3 weeks. A lot of people are out at pools, and we've talked about pool safety plenty of times as far as like premises liability is concerned. If you have a pool, what kind of safety measures are incumbent upon you legally in case, so that nobody gets hurt at your pool? Or are there any?
Well, I mean, most places are going to be required to have a fence around the pool, to have things like a handrail getting in and out, but a lot of that is a lot of times it's more of an insurance requirement,
Right.
Depending on what type of pool we're talking about. Or if you're in a neighborhood, you've got a personal pool, might be a requirement of your HOA even, as well as the insurance. So there are things like that, but those things also go to, a lot of times when we talk about pools, Dave, I know we talk about pools being an attractive nuisance, for children, and the duties that you owe to different types of people that come onto your premises. I don't want to get into too many nitty-gritty details here, but yeah, it's to protect yourself, to protect the pool, to protect it from others that might wander around near the pool. So
Residential, it's keep the fence up,
Right.
keep it locked. Hotels, motels up and down the beach, they generally have their fences around with the locking mechanisms. You'll see either no lifeguard signs up, or there'll be other warning signs that are placed around that. As Brittany said, the insurance companies go through and look at and do safety evaluations of these hotels and make certain recommendations. So generally most of the hotels follow those recommendations so that they can keep their insurance intact. But that's what you see a lot of times, is the warning signs and things of that nature.
Just please be safe, and remember, as we talked about earlier, for personal injury cases, if you're afraid to call a lawyer, don't be afraid. Give them a call, because consultations are free on personal injury cases. So call today and get the answers that you need, at least get the consultation that you're looking for. All right, next week I do want to remind you once again, we're going to be here at a different time. We'll be in the exact same place an hour earlier at 11:30 a.m. So right before the noontime show instead of right after it. So hopefully that doesn't screw up your lunch hour too much more. But next week our topic is going to be HOA. If there are any personal injury questions we didn't answer here today, you can email us and we'll get back to you off the show. legalaccess@wmbfnews.com. It's the same email address you can use if you have any HOA questions for next week in advance to make sure that we get those answered. For everybody here from the McGuire Law Firm, Ian McGuire, Brittany Jones, and Mike Smith, I'm Dave Priest. We'll see you again. Remember, next week, new time, 11:30 a.m. here. Legal Access.
You may wish to consult a lawyer to obtain case-specific legal advice. Information regarding lawyers can be located online or by contacting the South Carolina Bar Lawyer Referral Service, toll-free at 1-800-868-2284. If you are currently represented by an attorney, you should direct all legal questions to your attorney. The nature of any legal issue may depend on a multitude of factors. Therefore, the information provided in this program is purposefully broad and does not constitute legal advice. Please contact and retain an attorney in order to obtain case-specific legal advice.